Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Nathan's 3D Factory. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to do an articulated dragon. Pretty ambitious, isn't it? So let's get to work. So first thing I got here is my default scene, which I've set up. Alright, so first I'm going to get rid of that cube. Next, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to plug in a spiral. So this spiral that I have is part of a spiral pack that you can install on your user add-ons, right? So I have curve spirals. Archimedean is what I want. Okay. So you'll notice all these parameters right here, and if you don't understand them yet, that's totally fine. I get it. So first thing I want to do is that I want to get the radius so that it's at about 30 here on this. And then the height I'm not going to do anything with, but the radius growth I'm going to do 30 as well. So here we go. And I'm going to do 2 turns on this. Actually, that radius, I think, is supposed to be a little bit less. Okay. So now that we have that, there we go. I can tab out of edit mode. So now I have a spiral curve. So now the next thing that I want to do is that I have a couple of objects that I need to import from another scene. Rather than constructing the pieces that are going to go onto this articulated dragon, I decided to construct them prior and then just focus on how we're going to get this to follow on this print bed surface, okay? So to do that, I'm going to do F3 and I'm going to say append. Okay. Now I'm going to go into my scene where I've done this a couple times here and I tried various methods. So now I'm going to go into my objects. Okay. So I wanted to bring in body, head, and tail. So those will be my 3 objects I bring in. Now you'll see right here that it already brought in an object, right? However, what I want to do is that I want to clear those and I want to show you how I did this. So I'm going to do Alt-P, clear parent, Alt-P, clear parent. Okay. So just delete that armature so I can show you what I'm going to do with this, okay? Let's see. Now, let's see if I can find... Oh, okay, there's the head. All right. Do that. Alt-G. 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 Okay. So now I have everything in the same spot here, right? So next thing that I want to do is I want to make an armature. And I want to have this armature so that it's going to fit this spiral. So this is where things get kind of fun, you know? And when I say fun, I mean totally dicey. So I'm going to say, let's make a new armature. I could have just kept the one that I wanted, but what's the fun in that, you know? Or the one that I had. Okay, now let's see. I'll put this at a radius of 10. Okay. Now, next thing that I want is that I want to move this bone right here by tabbing into edit mode. We're going to grab that. You'll see that it right now is just like kind of stretching it, right? I want to have this so this moves over and matches with this curve, right? Now, there's going to be a few things that I'm going to do on this, so one thing I can also do is that I can turn these guys off. So these guys turn off right now. And I want to turn this on. And let's see. So right now you'll notice I have a lot of points here that I can snap to, right? Well, I don't necessarily want that. So, how do we solve that? Well, we go to this, and I ended up doing a geometry node thing where I ended up resampling the curve. So, I'm going to say resample curves. I want to change this from count to length, okay? And I put this at 4. And so then we should have a curve length of each of these segments of about 4, right? Actually, that wasn't 4, that was 40. So now you see this. It really reduces the resolution on this curve, but this is where we want it. So then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start fitting this to the curve so that we get this kind of a length right here, right? So let's see. And just to kind of give you an idea of just how long this is, I'll turn this head on right here. So you're going to get roughly a length of that curve of about 40. Same thing with the head. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get it so that it goes from this link to, let's turn the head off, this link. We want this so that this item fits exactly in the middle of this. So I can tell you right now, though, that these links right here are not going to be a perfect fit, and that's where we're going to have to get some things to match up with the armature, okay? So, anyway, we'll turn off the body. Okay, and I want to change this to vertex. Now, you'll notice as I put this together that I can grab this, I can snap it to vertices, but you'll notice it doesn't exactly do what I want it to do. It'll snap somewhere way out here, right? So, we'll tab out edit mode. I am going to convert this to a mesh. Okay? And then, as I do this, then I have my points that I can do. And I can do E for extrude. And I can move this around. There we go. And then I know that it's snapped to my endpoint right there. I'll extrude each of these by pressing E. Okay. Here we go. There we go. So now we have our armature all set up here. But the next question becomes, how do we get it so that each of these is correct? Okay? Because one thing I found as I was doing each of these things was that when I would rig these up and I would parent each of these objects, that I didn't have exact lengths. That became a bit of a problem. So, I'll show you what I'm talking about as I turn on these things. So first we'll start with the tail. Put this to the armature. Okay, and so I have my tail selected. And then what I'm going to do is that you'll notice that if I do Shift Select, and then I do Control Tab, that then I'll do a selection right there, and then I'll do Control P, and I want to do bone. So then I do Control Tab, again, gets out of object mode, or out of pose mode, which when I do Control Tab in the armature, that'll take me to pose mode. If I do tab, it'll do edit mode. So Control Tab is what I would want to rotate things around, do all that stuff. You'll notice that now I have that object parented to the bone. If I were to rotate this, well, it doesn't move that bone or that object, right? So, but I also look at this, and this is not how I want to pose this. So, to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Alt-P, clear parent. Now, to get it to do the exact location, that's where I have to go in, Control-Tab. And then, I want this so that these two are going to have the same rotation. How am I going to do that? Bone constraints. I'm going to add a bone constraint, and then I'm going to limit the rotation. Now, what I want to do is that I want to limit the Z rotation. But before I do that, I also want to point out that you'll notice that this is off angle. I want this to be exactly facing up and down without any weird perspective angles, okay? So, before we do that, I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to select all the bones. I'm going to press Shift-N. And then I want this to be where it says recalculate roll. I want this to be on the global plus Z axis. And now everything's off perspective. So back to what I was doing. So right here, I can now limit my Z, and now it takes it so that it's in a perfect 90-degree rotation here. And then rather than go through every single one of these bones, I'm going to press A to select all. And then I'm going to say copy to selected. There. And then each of those gets the same constraint. So the next thing I want to do is that I want to apply those constraints. So I got a couple things I got to do here. So I need to say apply, and that one I believe was apply visual transform to pose on that. And I'm going to apply this to each of these. Okay, so I'm going to do all these. Nope, I don't want to do that. Apply. Now, I tried to get it so that I could apply the visual transforms and everything like this. So it just removed all the stuff. But I found I had to do it one by one. It didn't just simply select all and then that was it. So, and I know I've got a lot of stuff on this. Okay. All right, so I got two more, three more, now two more. Okay, there we go. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to say, all right, now this one, I go, oh yeah, okay. So that right there, if I tab into edit mode, you'll notice it still hasn't done it. So I'll try this again. And then we're going to say, all right, well, so that didn't work out quite well enough. So apply. Select it as rest pose. So let's see now how that does. Okay, so I need to do that one as well. So just know those are a few things that you need to do. All right. Next, I'm going to take this one, Shift S, cursor to selected. Now I'm going to tab out of that. Actually, Control tab out of that. There, that's better. Now, I have the origin point right here, and I want it to match up exactly with this part right here, okay? So now, I'm going to say, okay, so Shift S, selection to cursor. So these will be the next steps that I take. I need to match up each of these bones so that they match up with each of these objects here. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want this spot right here exactly in the center to be where the bone goes. So I'm going to get Shift S, selection occurs. You see that wasn't right, right? Cursor to selected. Sorry about that, everyone. So now I go do this, Shift S. Okay, and now we're going to say selection of cursor. So now we have that. And what's nice now is that I can now say, all right, now I want to have the rest of these objects to follow. So I'm going to now include the body. Now, with the number of bones I have, that's going to tell me how many body segments I want to do. So however many segments I have left, I'll take away one because I want to have that last segment for the head. Okay? So now, I want to take this object and I want to apply it to this cursor. We'll say cursor to, a selection of cursor rather. All right. And then I'm going to go into here. And then we're going to do the same thing with cursor to selected. And this is a lot of repetitive work, I'm going to tell you right now. Shift S, selection of cursor. Okay. So I'm going to keep doing the same thing here. Shift D, Shift S, selection of cursor. Okay. And then what's nice is this is already selected. I can do Shift S, cursor selected, and we just keep doing the same thing. And then I can say, all right, well now I want to go into wireframe. Okay. Selection of cursor. Okay. So we'll just keep doing the same thing. And we just keep repeating the process until we get this all done. And then once we get that, all right, same thing. So we just have a few more to do, and by a few, that's quite a few more. So let's see. Okay. So I just keep going. Oops, hello. All right, cursor is selected. So just keep going with this. And so once you have a process in place, it's really nice just to be able to keep that process going, and you just repeat, and you get the success. So, but now you see how I'm just doing this repetition, and I just keep it going. Okay. All right. So I'm just about done with this. I hope. So, okay. So, it's one thing as well, is with all the repetition, it's going to get monotonous, right? So, okay. Here we go. Okay, now, last thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to unhide the head. So let's see. Now, turn that on. So now I'm going to take this, Shift S, selection to cursor. Okay. So next thing, I just want to get this to about at this point it really doesn't matter where this head or this tail of this bone goes, but sometimes it's just nice. Let's see, G Z G Y, not Z. Okay. There we go. So now I tab out of edit mode. So I got all those objects now where they're perfectly in place, okay? So it was a lot of repetitive work that I did, but now it's on to the next part, and that's making sure these are parented. So now I just do the same thing. Now I'm going to say I want it to parent to bone, okay? That way we're not doing any weird weights or anything like that. These are not going to be flexible objects. They're going to be rigid objects. So that gets to be a really repetitive process, but you know what? This is necessary for getting all this stuff put in. So, okay. Okay. So this will be a lot more repetitive stuff too. I can tell I missed right here. So I can subdivide that. Okay, so that should take care of that. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now I have everything so it's all rigged up now. And I want to turn this back to solid. Now, you're going to notice also that you can't really see the bones on here. And that's easily fixed up by going into your object. And then, let's see. You're going to go into where you have viewport display, and you're going to say in front. And now you can see it right through your object, okay? So now that we have all that set up, what we want to do is we want to follow the spiral. And then that way we can get all of our stuff curled up onto this print bed area that I have set up here, okay? So you're going to 3D print something like this. You're going to want to make sure that you can have it all fit onto your print bed. Otherwise, it's useless. So now I'll take each of these and I'm going to start rotating them. And I just want to do this. Let's see. So that didn't quite do it right there. Okay. So let's see. I got to do this one here. Okay. There we go. Okay, now, there we go. I just want to rotate this on the Z-axis, and then I'm going to start taking each of these and just following that curve the best I can, okay? It's not going to be perfect by any stretch, but the idea that you want to have is that when you go to print this, you want to have this so that you don't get intersecting geometry. Right here, I can see that there's some intersect, so we just kind of take that out so it clears it, okay? So otherwise, if you end up having these intersecting, they end up fusing, and then you don't get what you want. Okay, so now, just keep this going. All the while, just checking those joints to make sure that they're not going beyond what they're constrained to do. You don't want anything to fuse on that print bed. Okay, just keep these going. So if you can get a more gradual rotation, that's great, because then you're not messing with the constraints on this. Let's see, and that one I think we said we didn't want to do so far. Okay, let's see. Okay, so okay, you just keep these going like this. Okay. So I definitely have learned on this that you don't have to have like a perfect rotation on this. You do want to fit them on the print bed though. And you want to make sure the joints clear each other. So, all right, now just make sure that we don't have anything that's overlapping. That one has got a little overlap. We don't want that. go through each of these just to make sure that I haven't missed any of these joints or I haven't messed them up or anything. Okay, so far it doesn't look like anything's intersecting, which is good. Okay. This one looks a little close. I may want to do let's see. Okay. 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 So now look at that. And then we should be good with that. So I'm going to save this. Okay. So now we have that saved. And then what we want to do is we want to save this to, we want to save these to our STL. And so now I'm going to get out of there. So I'm going to select everything except for this spiral. And this one I've gotten so that it's not selectable. And then I'm going to export to STL so that I can set this up for doing my my 3D print here, okay? So this is how you design this. And also you want to include selection only when you export to STL. Do not do it without that. Otherwise you're going to get the print bed coming in with it and everything else that you don't need. Export STL. And then you'll have yourself a rigged articulated dragon. And then you can have that up for 3D print and it'll get those nice separate joints. So let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments. Make sure you put a like and a subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Nathan's 3D Factory. Have a great day, guys.